The miracles. Do you believe I can do this? So that you'll believe. I know two kinds of believer. Those who need miracles to believe, and those for whom miracles don't add an ounce to faith, but are even rather embarrassing. We shouldn't laugh at the first kind. They are in good company, for Saint Augustine said, "Without the miracles, I wouldn't be a Christian." And we shouldn't take the second kind at their word. If I went into any Italian square at a peak hour of the traffic or at market time and shouted that Madonna had appeared a mile away, I'm quite sure the square would be emptied in the wink of an eye. And the first to run might well be the materialist, the so-called unbelievers. But hard on their heels and just as breathless, there'd be many of those friends of mine who say, "For me, a miracle is something superfluous. My faith has no need of miracles." The truth about all of us is no more than this, that we are miracles ourselves, that we come from miracles and we are made for miracles. A miracle for anyone privileged to witness one in the course of his life is like returning home. Nothing brings more peace to the soul of man than to see a worker fall from the 5th floor of a building and remain unhurt. Nothing is more homelike than a wound that dries up in contact with a relic, or another wound that immediately opens in the hands, feet, and side of a saint. Because we were born there, in that land, where no 5th floors exist, and where the only known wounds are those of the crucified Christ. And for human beings, there is nothing more foreign, inexplicable, and intolerable than nature which ties them down with its laws. The massive weight of causality that holds us unremittingly in thrall, by which stone drops if your hands lets it fall, or the heart of a loved one stops if one of the wretched valves of that muscular machine breaks down. It's not true that the world itself is a miracle. The rising moon, the seed that turns into a plant, the ant that hoards provisions for the winter. Those who say it are guilty of malicious equivocation and are lying. The world is marvelous, but it doesn't satisfy us. We were born for a world where ants talk, magnolia seeds give birth to gazelles, and the moon falls into a well as in the poet's metaphor. At this moment, among all the people breathing under heaven, there isn't a single one who doesn't hanker after a miracle. Today, more than ever before, we are dying of this thirst. Science produces a dizzy succession of prodigies, and the more complicated and amazing they become, the more they confirm our humiliation at being unable to perform miracles, at being restricted to clever embroidery on the network of laws by which nature ensnares us. We harness gigantic waterfalls, but we can't make a drop of rain. We hear people talking about the moon, but we can't hear the voices of our dead who press upon us when we think we're alone. Every man-made miracle is enclosed and explained by some sort of cylindric bobbin in a test tube. But in the tales of our childhood, there weren't any bobbins or test tubes. The frog turned into a handsome prince, only because the fairy princess bent down to kiss him. Thus, even a man who has everything longs for a miracle, because a miracle is more than a kindly act of help or a useful present or a dispensation from pain. It's the intoxication of childhood returning to bewitch us. It's the revenge of early innocent wisdom on the illusory knowledge that follows it. It's the flag of our homeland flying on foreign soil in a wasteland of days that aren't ours, and depicting the castle where we were born by a miracle. The gospel is the field of miracles. There's scarcely a day in those 1,000 days between Nazareth and Calvary, scarcely a page turned on which the thrill of some awesome happening doesn't pulsate through the people who recognized Jesus and made supplications to him. Yet one thing stares us in the face, that Christ was an enemy of miracles. O wicked and adulterous generation, you don't believe unless you see miracles. To a greater or lesser extent, all his miracles were extorted from him, either dragged from his pity, snatched from his indulgence, or even stolen from him by cunning. And every time he agreed to perform a miracle, as with the man whose eyes were opened, the cripple who threw away his crutches, or the man raised from the dead, we realize that it's only for us that a miracle is plain and simple. For him, miracles meant something else. They meant what they would subsequently produce, the thing for which he turned himself into a wizard, but only rarely got, namely faith. So that you'll believe, I tell you, get up and take your bed. Do you believe I can do this? Yes, Lord. It'll be done to you according to your faith. If you can believe, everything is possible for the believer. Get up and go. Your faith has cured you. Our greed for miracles is so great that we clap our hands when the paralyzed man jumps up, when the hunchbacked woman becomes straight, when the dumb man speaks, or Jairus' daughter wakes up on her deathbed. Perhaps we even weep with hope and consolation, but we fail to realize that for him, each of these miracles left a wound in the depths of his soul, because each showed that his word wasn't enough for our wretched faith. I'll tell the story of Christ's miracles in terms of things happening to us. Because as soon as we think of our own lives, we are all at Jericho, Bethesda, Gadara, or Lake Tiberias, or in the tomb at Bethany. We have experienced blindness, paralysis, insanity, storms, and death. 1,000 times we've been told Ephphatha, and our tongues have been loosened. Be cleansed, and our souls have disappeared. Come out, and the stone of the sepulchre has opened to release us from our darkness. The real decisive miracle of the gospel is something quite different. It concerns 2 strapping men who got out and followed him without once looking back. When he'd gone a bit further, Jesus saw 2 men, James and John, in the boat where they were mending nets with their father Zebedee, and immediately called him. And they left the boat and their father with the fisher boys and followed him. We stayed behind mending our nets, though he looked at us more than once, peaceably from the boat with our father and the fisher boys we spoiled, the really rare miracle. The one compared with which the raising of Lazarus was no more than a game. The miracle that he succeeds in performing on one person in 1,000 and which no one has ever been able to relate. Following him. Thank you.